Peace everyone, Unmask here, and welcome back to the self-portrait live stream. Today I'm going to be continuing working on the face. Yesterday I did some more layering on the shirt and really brought out some of the shadows and the highlights a little bit. So the shirt is, I don't know, I'd say it's like 80% done, somewhere around there. Got the background all finished as of a few days ago, and yeah, so before the month is over, I need to get working back on the face. So let's just go ahead and do this. I have a whole bunch of colors here. I have like all the colors I've been using so far. So a tiny bit unorganized. See if I can find my colors. 194. Yeah, I'm a few minutes early. And then overall my stream is quite early today because I also will be streaming over on Patreon later today, and so I wanted to have a substantial gap between the two live streams. If you guys have any questions for me today, don't hesitate to ask. Happy to take on some questions while I work on this area around my eye. The skin here is quite dark, so have to get those values right in order for it to look correct. So that's what I'm gonna focus on first. Anytime I do a portrait, I almost always focus on the skin around the eyes first, and the reason I do that is because I find that the darkest colors of the skin tend to happen right around the eyes because you have shadows from the eyebrow coming down, and in my case I'm smiling quite a bit with my eyes, so there's some creases there, and just most of the time the darkest shadows just happen around the skin around the eyes. And if you can confidently fill in those dark shades of color, it gives you a really good kind of reference for the values happening throughout the face. So if you can confidently fill in those colors first, you'll be in good shape for the rest of the skin and all of that. Oh, hey there, David and Tessa, Cassandra. Date night was very good. Thank you for asking. Yeah, my wife and I went and watched John Wick Chapter 3 last night, and I'm happy to say that it is better than John Wick 2. They waste no time getting straight into the action. And they went a little bit more brutal. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit more brutal in this film than part 1 or part 2. Yeah, it was good, enjoyable film. I mean, if you like somewhat senseless action, then I think you'll be a fan of the film, because I'd say that's probably how I would sum up the movie. There's not a whole lot to the story. They kind of just, I think they just took the action and tried to make it the main focus of the entire film. Because aside from the action, there was very little parts that really involved much storytelling at all, but it was still, a good popcorn movie. if you like that kind of action stuff. The fight choreography is just top tier, amazing. So I'd say these are like the 5 base colors, mostly luminance pencils. I guess I'll just give you the numbers here. So this is luminance 862836. This is the 1 polychromos color 194, luminance 866, and then 872. So these are like the 5 base colors that I'd say you could almost color just about any skin with these 5 colors, and then you'll have to add other colors later on to do the toning and getting the skin color completely correct. But for base tones of just about any skin color, you could use these 5 colors pretty much. Ever since I got my luminance pencils, aside from strictly limiting myself to Prismacolors, I almost always use these 4 luminance colors, and I've used them in every single portrait that I've done. They just have a really good neutral tone that makes them extremely versatile in portraits. So they're really really helpful colors. Oh yeah, if you struggle through Mad Max, I can assure you Mad Max has nothing on the brutality of John Wick Chapter 3. So yeah, I will not sugarcoat that at all. Far more brutal than the other 2 movies, and yeah, quite graphic. Very, very graphic. So yeah, if you're a little squirmish, I would steer clear of the movie. I was actually kind of surprised that my wife was able to enjoy the movie. I mean, enough. She was able to enjoy the movie enough, but she's usually not into the those kind of like brutal graphic type movies. I couldn't even get her to watch The Walking Dead. It was just too disgusting for her, which is understandable. The beginning of Walking Dead, the first couple seasons, they didn't really hold anything back. And then they kind of toned it down in the later seasons. Where am I from? Well, I currently live in Poland, but I am from Ohio, United States. That's where I grew up. I was born in Michigan. I lived there for a couple years, which I don't remember for obvious reasons. And then I came to Ohio, and I grew up there. Graduated high school and then joined the military, and I spent a decade out west in Washington State. And so I'd say I became an adult in Washington State, and then after I graduated college I moved to Poland, and I've been living in Poland for 3 years now. Good morning, Gila. Good to see you again. I'm happy to see so many people in the chat. Usually these early live streams, they don't do too well because while all of my US audience is asleep because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning there, at least East Coast time. It's even earlier for the rest of the United States. But I felt like getting today's live stream done a little bit early, so I had more time in between this live stream and my Patreon live stream, which will happen at normal time. And today we're gonna be continuing on our beta fish in colored pencils. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you are interested in learning more from me, well then Patreon is the way to go. And I have a link for it in the description if you're interested. And if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, thank you, Sally. I appreciate that. Oh, that's cool, David. Do you need to be able to draw for the Patreon tutorials? Actually, that's a really, really good question. And actually, you do not. See, I don't teach drawing. What I teach is coloring. I also teach pastels, which is just painting. Pastels, there's some debate as to whether or not pastels is a painting or pastels is a drawing. I feel like the techniques with pastels closely resemble painting, so I refer to pastels as paintings, whereas with colored pencils I call them drawings. But in neither case do I teach drawing. What I do is I'll try to get as much input from the patrons, and I've asked over the past couple live streams what project they want to do next for the pastel project, because I do pastel tutorials on Tuesdays and colored pencil tutorials on Thursdays today. And I try to let them pick the subject that they want to work on. And what I do is I find a reference photo, and then I create a digital line art for that reference photo. And so I supply you with the reference photo, the line art, and a baseline color chart with the corresponding numbers of the pencils, all before the tutorial goes live. And that gives you the chance to take the line art and trace it down on whatever paper that you'll be using. And that's what I always recommend them do, is they just use the line art to transfer it over, because the drawing stage is not a necessity to be able to do. Most people that use colored pencils, or they're interested in colored pencils, they're more interested in coloring and learning to color, learning to use the medium, and you don't need to know how to draw to do it. I have also several colored pencil courses on my website that I sell, that are all real-time tutorials, and none of those courses require drawing skills, because I also in the courses I supply you with the line art, so that you don't have to struggle through the drawing phase of the project. You can just skip the drawing phase and get right into the coloring, because that's where the real difficulty lays. is the coloring process, and that's what most people want to learn anyway. So I just skip the drawing altogether. I've done a few drawing tutorials here on YouTube, but I don't get much enjoyment out of doing drawing tutorials because the fundamentals of learning to draw are so basic that I don't get much enjoyment out of teaching that particular subject. It's kind of like if you were to take a college professor that teaches number theory and you give him a job teaching addition to first graders, he's probably going to get crazy. He's probably going to go crazy teaching such a simple subject. And I kind of feel the same way. I've been drawing for so long that teaching the fundamentals just seems too slow for me. Usually it's a younger audience that is still in the learning to draw phase also. So I like to stick with the more complex subjects like coloring, because even if you always trace your line art, which I don't find anything wrong with that at all, you can't trace colors, so no matter how bad you might be at drawing and how often you might trace because of it, you can't trace colors. So it doesn't make much of a difference. So that's kind of my philosophy on it in a nutshell. So yeah, good question. It is so uncomfortable to look for a specific tutorial on Patreon. I find navigating rather poor. Oh, Tessa, me too. I'm so disappointed. I really am. I wish that Patreon would have a search bar for each individual page. It really does drive me nuts. I think in the future, my goal will be to actually leave Patreon and build my own teaching platform on my website, so that instead of getting membership through Patreon, you just get a membership through my website. And then what I'll do is I will organize the tutorials in a much more coherent way and have a search optimization for it, because I get messages quite often asking, oh, I can't find this particular tutorial, because I have a huge library of tutorials. I have over 100 tutorials on Patreon, and I can't even find them half the time. To be honest with you, it's very frustrating, and it drives me nuts. I wish that Patreon would think about these things and solve them, because I can't imagine that it would be too difficult for them to just put a search on the page so that you can find the videos that you're looking for easier and quicker. Half the time what I have to do is I have to go on YouTube, because I can search my video library on YouTube with no problem. And so what I end up doing when somebody asks where a particular tutorial is I will just go to YouTube instead, and then I'll copy and paste the link and send that to them so that they can just go straight to the video. I think maybe what I ought to do also is go back through my library of tutorials and try to organize them a little bit better using the tagging system, because they have the tags that you can put on your videos that will help kind of it helps a little bit to find the tutorials, but I think what I'll end up doing is maybe writing the title in the tag also, so that each series, because the tutorials are usually, done over a couple weeks or something like that. So I might do, I don't know, I might try something like that. Anything to help the organization there. I think the face is already starting to look better, especially this side over here. I gotta do quite a bit of work on my nose. It looks a little two-dimensional. Building your own site is probably a good next step to take. I already have a website. Oh, you mean for Patreon? Yeah, yeah. That's I'd like to incorporate it into my website, so that not only I can organize my videos the way that I would want them, but also so that I can stop paying Patreon. Patreon, they provide a lovely service, a lovely platform, but I am wholeheartedly against the. I'm wholeheartedly against paying a website to do something I could do myself when they don't offer. Not only they don't offer exactly what I'd prefer, but they're not assisting in any of the actual creation of the content. So like, I do all the work and they simply just have a website that I make posts to, and they make money off of it. And I mean, I understand it's a business. I get it, and it works. They make a lot of money doing what they do, but I've never liked businesses like that. That they provide almost an artificial service, and they control all the money. I'd prefer to do it on my own website and have it all set up so that that nobody gets paid except for me, because I'm the one doing all the work. So hopefully in the future, I'd prefer what I'd really like to do is to hire somebody to build a website for me, but I've never come across anybody that does it. That I've looked on like I've Google searched like website builders, but I just honestly don't know where to go to find such people. They're just a web hosting. They don't build your website. You can just buy domains. I've in the past I've had two different websites, and in the past I signed up and spent a pretty decent amount of money when I first got my website. I had them build the site for me, and it was the most atrocious site that I've ever seen in my life. And I can't even remember what business it was through, but what I'd really prefer is a human that I can communicate with, like in person, and somebody that I don't have to just talk through emails, and try and explain what it is that I want. I'd prefer somebody that I could hire in person, like go meet them in their office and be like, hey, I need a website. I need it to be able to do this, and I need a page that looks like this, and blah blah blah. All of that stuff. That's what I would prefer. It'd be very difficult to do that here in Poland because, well, I don't speak Polish. But maybe I could get lucky and potentially find somebody. Or if there's somebody I could, communicate well with over the internet, I suppose that's also a possibility. But finding somebody that I trust is also very important, because I'm talking about somebody that's going to be working on a website that, has money flowing through it. And the last thing I wanted is having somebody build a website and then just rob me, because that would be also quite a bad thing. I haven't overpriced the domain, but I trust the site. Yeah, right now my site is through Weebly, and I like that. Like, I like that I can, figure out how to build my own site relatively easy. It's not too difficult, and it looks okay, I guess. And it's easy to set up like the store where I sell my courses. That was relatively easy to figure out, and I have it, I have it looking okay, but really it just feels like a lower tier, and I'm not very fond of that. Uh, I prefer to have something a little bit more professional looking. It just feels less than professional, and it just drives me nuts. I hate dealing with like migrating my site if I were to ever get a new website. I hate dealing with websites. I just don't want anything to do with it. I think your website looks good, clean look, easy to navigate, and actually quite professional looking overall. Oh, well, thank you. I tried to. Its simplicity is not by design. It's simply that I am terrible at designing websites, and so it's simple because I had no other choice. But I prefer simple websites to something that's, doesn't have a lot of stuff going on and you get lost in the navigation. So I try to keep it simplistic. I don't spend a lot of time editing my site. Really, the only time I really edit my site is when I put out a new course and I need to, you know, add it to the products. But aside from that, I don't really do anything. I don't update like the pictures or things. I probably should, but I don't. Just tell everyone you come across what you look for. Chances are somebody knows someone. Yeah, I always tell my sister that people are the greatest resource, um, and you just have to ask the right questions or say the right thing. But yeah, I don't. The only people I come across are you people in the chat. So uh, not only if one of you happens to know somebody will would it help me out, because I don't talk to anybody. um, I don't talk to anybody other than my wife here in Poland, so it doesn't finding that such stuff is not easy to come by. Although my wife's boss, he would probably have a good resource for site building. They just hired somebody to build their new website. I don't know if they're using their new website yet, but he's potential. He's potentially a resource for finding somebody to build the website, because he's a boss, so he has a business, runs a business, and all of that. My dream scenario would be to have my website set up so that I can no longer use Patreon. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be a an auction. I want to be able to set up auctions for my artwork, because I'd prefer not to just list them as some arbitrary price, because especially after the live stream last week where somebody asked me about how to price artwork, and I explained how I price my artwork, which is literally just by making up prices out of thin air, because that's what I do and that's what I recommend anybody do. Because the value of artwork is really just what anybody would pay for it, and so you value your artwork high enough for people to appreciate it, and they pay for it, then that's what the value is of it. But I would like to have it set up as an auction instead, so that the value is determined exactly how much somebody is willing to pay for it, and that's what I think would be the best option, for me anyway. Maybe not for everybody, but that's what I'd like to do. But currently there is no auction setup available for my current web hosting slash web building site, which is really unfortunate, because as I've read is several people have been asking for it for many years now, and still they have not developed a way for people to have an auction. Have I tried the powder blender? Yes, I have. Actually, I have a few live streams that I did a couple years ago. I think it was a couple years ago. It could have been last year. I have the hardest time remembering how long ago it was. But yeah, I have several live streams using the powder blender that you could look up and watch if you are interested in watching them. But I've had a few people bring it up during this live stream series, and I agree, it is a really great product, and I would probably use it more often if I had better access to sanded paper, but I don't because of where I live. But I'm not sure, even if I did have good access to sanded paper, that it would be a method in which I would use regularly, because it's not really my, I don't know, it's not really my way of doing stuff, because even though it is technically faster, it's faster than just regular blending with solvent, or doing layering or any of that stuff. You get beautiful results. You have like unlimited control. It's just I'm not sure if the method really resonates with me, and so actually using it in the long term, I don't know if I would. But that doesn't. I say that not meaning to imply that it's not a great product or anything like that, because I do think it is. You could just list your art and have people bid in the comments. Yeah, I thought of that. I thought of that as well. But the thing about that is it's no longer anonymous. Like, I'm not sure. I think that if the auction was more anonymous, where all you see is the price that it's, the current bid is at, but nobody knows who's buying it. I think that's more appealing to people than them having their name attached to a number. You know, a lot of people are really private about their finances and all of that stuff. I am not at all. I've talked about how much money I make on YouTube many times before. And I'm very transparent with how much money I make and how much money I have. But some people aren't. And I think that a public auction where there's no anonymity, people would be a little turned off by. I think if people were a lot less secretive about their finances, I think we'd probably have a better, like a better money relationship in general in throughout the world if people were just more transparent with how they make money and how they save money and stuff like that. Because I try to be, I'm as transparent as I think anybody can be about finances because, you know, if you want to make a living being an artist, I don't keep what I do a secret by any means or how I make money. And I would like more people to be financially unburdened as I am. I live a very, well, I can't say very comfortable. I'm very comfortable, but it'd be different person to person, obviously, depending on how comfortable you need your life to actually be. But financially, I am just wonderful. All I need is to find a house so that I can gosh darn buy a house. That's really the biggest obstacle I face now is not the money to buy a house, but the house itself. Does my left brow lower? Is my left brow like this brow lower than that? Well, yeah, it's lower because my head is tilted a little bit. So it should look lower since my everything is this way. If my head was straight on to the camera, then we'd have an issue. But since my head is tilted in the photograph, it works. So Anya has not found a real estate agent yet. No, she hasn't spoken with any particular company yet. She's just been what she's been looking up is more of like what to look for in a good agency, and just kind of she likes to do like all of her homework, and she'll spend a lot of time doing it. She has that kind of focus ability that I wish that I had. That's why I was always really terrible in school, because it's impossible to hold my attention unless you're actively challenging me. But the irony is that doing such things would be challenging if I committed to them, but I don't, and so they lack the kind of challenge necessary to hold my attention. But for her, she doesn't have. I mean, she finds it boring and she doesn't like to do it, but somehow she is able to do it, and I've never been able to do that. So that's kind of what she's working on now. She's been telling me to stop talking about buying a house because it stresses her out. And we had this conversation yesterday, and I said, well, I'm stressed out about it because I'm, I want to buy a house. I really, really do want to just finally be in a house and be done with this flat. Like, that's where I just love to be. But it's so, there's just so much more to it than what, I don't know, than what I anticipated. And I guess the biggest hurdle is settling, really, because there's houses available, but we have to settle on a house, because we're not going to get, we're not going to find our dream home, and that's not what we're looking for in the first place. What we're looking for is more of a transition. We're looking for a house we can transition to and, live there, stop paying rent and wasting money. And then once, while we're there, we can look for the long term of what we'd prefer to do. And what we'd prefer to do in the long term is to buy property and build our dream home. That would be that's our ideal plan, but it's just not easy at all. So we have a long way to go, and we're not expecting to do this, in the next year. But this year in particular, I told her, if we don't find a house this year in Poland, then I'm going to start looking to move us to the United States, which neither one of us likes the idea of, because she'll be giving up her job, and that cuts our income in half. And everything in the United States is significantly more expensive in comparison to our current lifestyle. When we go grocery shopping, we'll spend, 200 zloty at the grocery store, which is equivalent to spending $200 in America. What we get at the grocery store for 200 zloty, you would get for $200 in America. However, the difference comes with the fact that 200 zloty is only about $65. So we're getting what you would get for $200 for $65 instead. So that's where the big issue comes up. Plus, when we move to America, I have to get a car because public transportation in America is a joke or just flat out non-existent. So there's just a huge degree of expense complication to move to America. Not to mention the move itself. I mean, we have things here. We wouldn't take our dresser, we wouldn't take our bed, or we wouldn't take this desk or anything like that. But I still have a lot of stuff. Too much stuff to just take on a plane or put in a suitcase. So we'd have to find, we'd have to pay for shipping of our stuff. You can get those like shipping crate thingies, like a big wooden box or something like that might be like 25 cubic feet, somewhere around that size. I have no idea how much that costs to ship. I can't imagine that it's cheap at all. Probably a couple $1,000s. So the move to America is like last resort. Neither one of us wants to do it. I don't want to pay for it. That's for sure. But that's what it is. Don't really have anything else to say on that front. But oh, hello, Agnieszka. How do you not lose interest in a picture? I don't. I lose interest so fast. I lose interest really fast. It's not. I've always considered it very much a curse, the way that my mind works, because I have like when I think of an idea of something, oftentimes it will be like a full-fledged idea from like beginning to end. It will have excruciating detail, but it happens really fast for me, and my mind like runs a million miles an hour, and it's very hard to shut it off. In fact, most of the time it's not shut off. That's probably why my wife thinks I always look unhappy because I'm just relaxed. I have to keep my face relaxed 90% of the day because my mind is going crazy 100% of the day, and I lose interest super fast. In fact, I was talking to my wife yesterday about how nothing is fun right now. I got into a new video game, and I thought, oh yes, finally something that I can just tune out the world and play and just relax and not think of anything else. But I lost interest in it, and I was telling her yesterday, I was like, I don't understand how I lost interest in it. It was super fun. It reminded me of a game that I played to death as a child, well, teenager. And it's much more complicated than that game, which means there's more to it that I can explore and have fun with. But it only lasted like 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, I haven't played it for like 2 weeks because I lost interest in it. And every single thing that I'm like picking up, I'm starting to lose interest in, and it's driving me crazy because you gotta have something to relax and have fun with, right? Like, yeah, you just have to. And because I spend all day drawing and creating and working as an artist, drawing has become less of an activity that I do to relax. It used to be that I just sit there and I draw for hours and hours and hours. But it has inevitably turned into a career and a job. So it's become less of an activity that I seek to do for the sake of relaxing, which is, partially my fault, if not entirely my fault. But yeah, that's not sure where to take the rest of that question. What I like to do when I'm working on a picture is what I did on this one. I started on the background. I didn't finish the background, but then I came to the face. I didn't finish the face, but then I went to the shirt, and I didn't finish the shirt. I went to the hand, and then after the hand, I went back to the background. So I like to do them in stages, compartmentalize each part, and not 100% finish it, but kind of like go back and forth, so that I'm not doing the same thing over and over again for too long of a period of time, things like that. But yeah, I still end up losing interest in a lot of what I do, and I'm always finding like new references and new photos that I'm just drawn to, that I want to create. If it cannot catch your attention, maybe you don't actually want it. Yeah, that's a possibility, but there's things that I know for sure that I want that just fail to hold my attention. It has to be like the right kind of challenge for me. That's the thing. There's things that I find challenging, and then there's things that are challenging that pique my interest. And I think that's why I jump around a lot to different subjects, and I'm never drawing or painting the same thing over and over again. Because I would never be able to, only do animal portraits. I'd never be able to do only human portraits or only landscapes or only anything. I would never ever be able to do that because none of them pique my interest to a degree that would allow me to only work on that subject. They all pique my interest at different times, and when they do, I do that, and then I move on to the next subject, the next anything. And yeah, sometimes I wish I could just simplify everything and just do, the one thing, but it just it doesn't work like that with me. What about your sculpting? Yeah, my wife asked me about that yesterday, and I told her, I was like, it was so fun. It was extremely fun that first 2 weeks. And I guess a part of me felt like, what am I doing? Like why am I doing this? And I got pretty good in those 2 weeks, and I thought that it was going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, but then my interest for it vanished. Like it just, no warning, No 2 week notice, no nothing. It was just, it was there and then it was gone, and it was gone faster than it was there. I don't even, I don't even look for sculpting videos on YouTube anymore, because that's kind of where it started. It started with, like, I came across a sculpting video and I was like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. Let me get some of that sculpting clay and just try it out. And I did. I got it. I did. I sculpted a skull. I sculpted several human heads and faces, and I was really enjoying the delicacy of it all, and the challenge of it. And then and then it just vanished. The inspiration, the motivation, the desire, all of it just completely gone. I have new clay over there that I've never even opened, and I have tools that I never got to use, and I have such little motivation to try it that I couldn't even open the clay. And for the life of me, I have no idea why. I have no idea why. If I could find what it is that, like, motivates me to to do anything that I would do for fun, oh gosh, my life would be so much easier. But it's totally weird for me, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. I wish that I had a better way of expressing it, because I probably just sound like I'm rambling right now, and not making any sense. But the reality is, it's just sometimes the the motivation, and I don't even like to use the word motivation, because it's not motivation that's making me do it. It's more inspiration, I guess. Um, and it's having fun that makes me want to do it. And almost as soon as it's there, it's gone, and I don't know what to do afterwards, and it just drives me nuts. I have so much fun doing it, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's no longer fun to do it. And it's not about being inspired or being motivated. It's that it's not fun, and I don't know how to turn the fun back on. It's really been driving me crazy the past, like, 2 months. Oh, congratulations, Sergio. That's really cool. It's funny how much done my face looks, but my neck doesn't. It looks like my face was, like, photoshopped on, and then my neck and the body is of a different person. Yeah, I like to learn. I definitely like to learn. I am a fan of learning. I like to learn everything. But the problem is the fun, like, the fun. In the beginning, it's, like, so fun, it's exciting, um, but then I get to a stage where, I guess I get to a stage of understanding, and it stops being fun for some reason. I was trying to explain to my wife why I felt like the Path of Exile game that I was really excited to be playing, why it stopped being fun. And I told her I felt like it was the online community that killed the game because for those of you that don't know what Path of Exile is, it's just an action role playing game where you create a character, you level them up, you give them skills and all of that stuff. So there's a degree of figuring out how to make the strongest character, but you don't have to figure out how to make the strongest character. That's the problem. You simply just have to look at the website that tells you how to make the strongest character. And you might be saying, well, just don't look at the website. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but the point of the game is to make the strongest character, and it would be in everyone's best interest to have a forum in which people are playing the game and they try different things and they figure out what would be the best character. And when the best character rises to the top, it's like, well, that's the best character. So it's done. It's like you beat the game. Like you figured it out. And when you have that predetermined path, it makes everything you do pointless because you don't have anything to figure out now. It's just, well, there's the finish line, but getting to the finish line is not what I find fun about that type of game. It's not knowing the finish line. It's constantly it's the finish line being almost mythological in a sense. Like you can't get there because nobody actually knows. And the other problem with the game is the trading marketplace. Not only is it not in game, you have to use a separate website for it, but I don't like that I can basically just look up what I need for the game and then trade for it, and then I have it. It removes the most important part that I always enjoyed about the game, Diablo 2, which was a comparison to the game that I played when I was younger. And it was the only way to get the stuff was either to already have it or have good stuff to trade for it, and that wasn't easy. You had to work to trade for it, or you'd had to find it yourself. And finding it yourself was just like part of the fun, like finding new things and working to find it. But that part, what I found most exciting about the game, is gone. And so the game was hard to learn from the beginning, but once I learned it, and then I learned that this is how you get the stuff that you need, it's like, oh well, I guess I'm done. Like I beat the game. That was it. It was over. I also found the game way too easy. It'd take 3 days maybe to beat the game with minimal effort whatsoever, and it was just disappointing. There's really no other way to talk about it. Whenever I excelled in something, it was because someone will have said that it would be too difficult for me. Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. It was the doubt. It was the doubt of my capabilities that often motivated me to do some of the random things that I did. I need a particular color. It is not an easy color to find. Hmm. 1080. It's not necessarily the color as much as it is the value of the color. Because the problem that I'm facing is that my skin on my face is not dark enough. Since I'm not able to draw for the rest of this month, oh, that's fantastic, Sergio. I'm glad the live streams help you work through that that phase where you can't draw much. Glad I could help you get through that. I'm a little stuck here. Just a tiny bit stuck. I gotta find this color. Nine four one. 941. Gotta get my pencils. I don't think I have 941. All right. 941. Where is this pencil? Okay, let's see. This should be the shading color. It should be closer to the value that I need. And I'll just build it up really, really slowly. Sometimes, when we're coloring, I think this is probably the most difficult part about coloring, whether it's with paint, colored pencils, markers, it doesn't matter. When we're in the process of coloring, we get stuck in this. We get stuck in this kind of process where we always want the picture to look as correct as possible. We want it to look as best as possible at any given moment. And that will hold you back every time. It is probably the underlying cause of color fear in any given moment. Now I'm taking this brown here, and I am going to ignore that I am coloring a face, and what I'm going to do instead is, I know that this value here is correct. The color might not be perfect, but I can fix that later. But what's more important is that the value of this color is correct. And if I can map out where this color dominates, or the value of this color dominates, I'm going to make the face look worse than it does now, but at least I'll have the correct value. So that's what I'm kind of doing here, because the right side of my face here is supposed to be in the shadow. It's not entirely shaded, but this side of my face is being lit by the natural light, and so it makes this side of my face a darker shadow. So I need to make sure that that shows up. But the problem is the value here and the value here is not, it's not drastic enough in order to get the shadow, or in order to get the face looking the way that it needs to do. So I'm basically just covering everything up on this side with this color to develop those values better, even though it's going to affect the overall color and probably not make the face look as good as it does before applying the color. But I need to get it darker. You know, when I do portraits, or actually, it's not even just portraits. When I do just about anything, there's always this stage where I am working on a certain section or something like that. In this case, it's the face and the skin tones. There's always like this missing color, like almost every time, because when I do the planning stage of my work, you know, I always collect a good range of colors for like the primary coloring in process. There's always this you know, here I have a printout that I did, and here's some of the colors that I collected for just the skin, right? These 8 colors for just portions of color that I pulled from the skin. And this printout's a little darker than what I want it, so it's more of just like a general guide as opposed to an exact replica. You can see that the colors in the back are a little bit lighter than here. The printer printed it out quite dark. You can barely even see anything on the shirt. It's almost pure black. But when I try to make my color charts as comprehensive as possible, try to get about 8 or 9 colors is usually where I stay. I don't go crazy and pull out like 40 different colors, because usually you'll have about 10 colors that are very distinct from one another, and then if you pull out any more than that, what you'll end up getting is really just colors that you would get if you mixed 2 of the colors. So you might get something like a little bit in between 2 of the colors. But no matter how much I do get, no matter how many colors I do end up pulling out, to start the project, to start the coloring process, there's always this point that I get where I feel like I've maximized the potential of those colors that I had gotten initially, and I always have to hunt for like one or two extra colors that is missing from all of it. And I feel like I finally found this. I feel like this is the color that was missing from the beginning, that just I overlooked somehow. It's just the right blend of brown and orange, because this is more of an orangey brown, little yellowish orange brown, in comparison to something like this. This is much red. This is more of a red brown. But yeah, I feel like I have the values established a little bit better with this brown here. Oh, hi there, Keegan. Yes, I think this looks much, much better now. I think I might even use my paintbrush to smooth out the skin, and then I think I'm going to call it a day. I got less done than what I anticipated, which is probably a good thing, since we have, after today, there will be 7 days. So we have 1 week left. We only have 1 week for me to finish this. So I was feeling real confident yesterday, and now after spending that hour and a half on just my face there and still not being done, I'm feeling slightly less confident. But let's just smooth out some of the skin, and then tomorrow I think I'll work a little bit on the neck and the ear and try to get that looking better than what it looks now, since it doesn't match. The skin on my face does not match the skin on my neck anymore. But either way, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's live stream. I'll be streaming again tomorrow. I'll set up tomorrow's live stream here after I finish today's, and so it would be a little bit later or earlier, depending on what part of the world you're living in. But I really appreciate you guys coming by and asking questions and just being there for me to talk to and hang out. Really hope you learned something through these live streams, and hopefully I inspire a few of you to, pick up your pencils and have fun. Despite all of what I've kind of said in today's live stream, I do still have plenty of fun with the live streams. They're very therapeutic for me, actually. to just kind of express my thoughts in real time with you guys. It's you're kind of my therapist. You're just my group of therapists. So I appreciate you giving me your time. It means a lot to me. I'll see many of you later today for the Patreon live stream. We're gonna just continue on our beta fish, have some fun with some bright purples and blues and all kinds of colors today. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Did quite a bit today, so thank you guys again so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you next time. Take care. Peace.